Today we're going to talk about dolphin pose. So this is a really nice pose for opening and strengthening the upper body. It is a good prep or alternate for inversions. So if you're working on being comfortable inverting, getting kind of the hips more over the head, sort of that beginning phase, it's a good preparatory pose, kind of in working towards that goal. Or if you are not comfortable and you don't want to invert completely, it's a good alternative. So if you have a shoulder injury, this pose is not recommended. Glaucoma and high blood pressure, and recently if you've had a stroke, and a lot of times, you know, these high blood pressure or low blood pressure are really common contraindications, and it has to do with the more of an inverted motion. So we're going to we'll come this way onto our mat. And so there are some variations, as with everything, but basically if you have not warmed up, I would maybe recommend a couple of forearm planks and downward facing dog poses just to get your body warmed up. But I would really warm up before you do this, maybe a couple forward folds, just to get things ready. So we're going to start on all fours, and as we progress, we want to make sure we are not closing off the chest. We want to open it, and so we're strengthening those shoulders by utilizing them and keeping them where they belong, so it kind of strengthens and stretches simultaneously. So what we'll do, come onto all fours, and then to see, oftentimes you'll see people, they're measuring how far apart their arms should be, so they're grasping each elbow, and then you place that down and then put your arms straight. So you can have a fist and clasp one hand. You can keep the arms down flat if that feels better. You can clasp the fingers. So I'm going to clasp my hands together. What I don't want to do though is immediately rotate the shoulders. I want to keep those in a more neutral position. So if you are bringing the hands together, I am a hands go next to each other kind of person, because I don't want to cause an injury accidentally by having medial rotation present. So it's up to you, but I do think if you are preparing for something like headstand, that it is nice to clasp the fingers, because that's more of it's closer to the movement that you're going to do in a headstand. Hope that makes sense. So we're going to bring our hands onto the mat, so we're pressing the forearms into the mat. I would also use caution with this if you have tennis or golfer's elbow. So we're pressing the forearms, not just the elbows, pressing the forearms down. We're going to curl the toes under. And so this is basically like downward dog on the forearms. I mean, to an extent. So we're going to curl the toes under. We're going to lift the hips. And if you're tight, you can bend the knees. You can have a little bit of a wider stance. And so we're going to walk the feet as close as we can, keeping the shoulders in check, keeping the chest nice and open. Relax the hands a little bit, pressing into those forearms. We're lifting. So with the lower body, just as in downward dog, that adductor magnus is really helping to hold the head of the femur in the acetabulum. So the hip is a ball and socket joint. So basically that means we're keeping the bone in the joint. We're keeping everything pulled together. Just like with our shoulders, we're keeping the ball in the socket. We don't want anything falling out. We want to keep that nice and engaged. So I'm going to come on to my forearms this way. We're going to do one more time. So we're keeping those shoulder blades really active. We're using all those rotator cuff muscles, really pulling those scapulas down, keeping the chest nice and open. So we're going to push the forearms down, curl the toes under, and lift the sit bones. Now you can have a bent knee if that feels better, or you can bring them more straight, keeping the heels down, and then bring the knees down. And remember, it is a little bit of an inversion, and so when you come up, just make sure you give yourself enough time to not rush it.